interface is active and we're at full power.
What's your levels this time?
You just make sure you pull the trigger on the way out.
After initial binding, you'll be locked in, with no loss of control permitted during this performance.
We can't afford any mistakes on this one.
I wanted to start by asking about the process of performance in this film, since both of you are playing characters who are ultimately very rarely allowed to be themselves. One of you is contaminated by the other is contaminated. Is this the sort of thing you work on together or separately, or do you rehearse to figure out how each other will filter through the performance, or was it just something you came up with on your own?
I mean, first and foremost for me, because I was playing a character called Voss, I was approaching it from her perspective in the sense that she's been a trained assassin for many, many years and is well seasoned and brilliant at her job, almost undetectable. She's so good at inhabiting other people. And she's on the verge of completely losing touch with who she is. Psychologically, physically, emotionally, certainly. That went a long time ago. So my sort of preparation was mainly coming from that perspective, and I spend most of the film really teetering on the brink of total sort of self-annihilation. But then we talked about this for a long time before we actually shot, Chris and I and Brandon, about how the two of us would essentially play the same person and who that person was, because like you say, Norm, you know, yes, somebody's inhabiting Colin's body, but we know very little of Colin and we know very little of Voss.
Exactly, yeah. It's all...
She's become so untethered to a real life.
And the character of Voss is so good at her job that, you know, it's important to, you know, it's important for her to be good at being somebody else. So there's a lot of layers to kind of sift through that we don't even know.
Well, did physicality ever come into it? Was there it feels like there's a little kind of a head tilt motion that both of you carry through, but I couldn't really tell if it was something that just happens normally in people and I'm assigning it to the personalities involved because of the way the film works. And that's a meditation on identity that I find really fascinating as well. The movie just opens that door and lets us wonder how much of anyone we're really seeing at any given moment.
And how much is projection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some of the things, yes, were more specific and we sort of knew we were doing, especially the part where we're mirroring each other.
Sure.
And then other things, it was almost eerie looking back at the rushes and realizing that we'd done a lot of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether that's because of the strength of Brandon's story or the world that he created. It wasn't for lack of trying, you know, as we were absolutely trying to do that, but it's just interesting the way that it came together. And it was kind of, for want of a better word, organic. It was quite organic the way it came together.
Yeah, I think the Apple thing is the most like there on the page and what like the thing, but then there's other, you know, I think there's other things that just kind of happened, kind of naturally, you know, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun when that happens.
Yeah. We were essentially inhabiting the same world as the same, not the same person, but in the same person slot for a while. It makes total sense that there was a symbiosis.
Yeah. And just out of my own curiosity, when you read a script like this, how do you plug yourself into it? Do you imagine yourself as a character, or is it just completely abstract when you're reading this sort of role where you're inhabiting someone or someone's inhabiting you and you have to figure out your way into that character?
I think for me, the character just becomes very, very clear. It kind of jumps out and grabs me by the throat or some other body part, depending on which character. I think in living through an avatar is something we can all identify with to a certain extent, especially now. But it's not a new concept. I mean, you know, people lived through their pen avatars, you know, hundreds of years ago, and there are so many different ways to like.
And Chris, for yourself, the the sense of being puppeted as a performance? Is that something that you can easily connect to, or?
Well, I mean, I found it like one of the more intriguing things to experiments to kind of work on, you know, in this film. I mean, to kind of, yeah, I mean, it's just a challenge, you know, it's a challenge to kind of pick and choose what seeps through and when, you know, and who's kind of at the forefront in each moment. Yeah, so I mean, that in itself is like, you know, as an actor, like so something you jump into whenever you get the chance.
All right. Well, thank you. I've got the wrap up. So these things are always so much fun to deal in 6 minutes, but it was a pleasure, and best of luck with everything. See you guys soon.
Ready?